Well, Donald Trump flared his feathers once again this morning, tweeting this: "It's finally happening. Fiat Chrysler just announced plans to invest $1 billion in Michigan and Ohio plants, adding 2,000 jobs. This after Ford said last week it will expand in Michigan and U.S. instead of building a billion-dollar plant in Mexico. Thank you, Ford and Fiat C. Well, these investments are expected to create nearly 3,000 jobs. But in a country of more than 300 million, how much more of this will we need, and how far should government go to preserve work?" Joining us now is television show host Mike Rowe. Mike, thanks a lot for joining us.
Tucker, congratulations. Look at me and you in prime time.
On the first show, you were the first request we put in.
I know.
So thank you for doing it. Of course. I think it goes without saying this is a good thing. I think it's always good when American jobs are saved. But you're already seeing a backlash against this. People saying, well, what about the Mexican citizens who would have worked in those plants in Mexico? How should we feel about this?
I feel pretty good. I mean, look, it's not just jobs. And when I say that, I don't mean to minimize it at all, but there's just something, in my humble opinion, larger at work here. And it has to do with our identity. It has to do with what it feels like when we're actually making things as a country. You know, people ask me all the time about dirty jobs. What was the big lesson? And the lesson was the value that comes from, you know, getting your hands on a thing and always knowing how you're doing because you're a part of some kind of process. I just think, you know, on a micro level, that was the case for me. But on a macro level for the country, it's just important for us to collectively feel like we're making something.
So a manufacturing job, even while, let's say, it pays 60 grand, is worth something more to the country than, I don't know, pick another field, retail or finance, that may pay more because it makes us feel better?
Well, look, I get uncomfortable when we start to talk about, you know, it's heads better than tails. You know, there's blue collar, white collar, retail, this sector, that vertical. Ford invented mass production. You know, it's an American company that showed us the critical importance of being able to do the same thing the same way over and over again. And to have them affirmatively, you know, digging back into this country to do that very thing, I just think there's an exponential component to it that goes right to the national identity. And I don't think you can overestimate the importance of feeling good about making a thing.
But conservatives have argued for really generations that the most important thing is to respect the market, and which should proceed unhindered, especially by government. And they're giving up something. I mean, if you're a market absolutist, you can't really look at this and be that happy about it, can you?
Well, it just depends on how absolute the market is, right? I mean, if the absolute market is the country or 5 countries or the entire world or the entire universe, whatever that means, look, our economy is global, and I get it. A car that's manufactured in Mexico, where labor is 85% cheaper than it is in the United States, is going to be cheaper for the consumer, theoretically, and that's fundamentally a good thing in a global market economy. Look at me, I'm not an economist. What do I know? But it's just math, right? But at some point, we have to ask ourselves, if you just keep extrapolating that, who are we? What do we do other than buy things that other countries make on our behalf? And then eventually, when the bottom falls out, it's like Idiocracy, you know, that movie. We don't know how to hang a picture anymore, much less make a car. And so, you know, we can talk about what's best for the consumer. We can talk about what's best for the worker. It's really hard to do both at the same time. I get it. But in this larger sense, I just can't imagine how anybody could look at decisions to bring manufacturing back here and ultimately reward the kind of behavior that I think we all want to encourage.
Right. So I see by your backdrop here in San Francisco, you must be sort of for technology. I think most Americans are sort of for technology, but it's also one of the reasons so many of our jobs have left. It's not just wages and unions, it's technology. What should the government's posture toward new technologies that will certainly destroy jobs be? Driverless cars, for example. They're going to put a lot of people out of work. Should the government actively impede the development of those technologies in order to save jobs?
Man, it's a bit past my pay grade, but I do appreciate the dichotomy right now in the trucking industry. There's this giant shortage of drivers. They call me all the time and say, can we do a program through your foundation that will help get people in our industry? At the same time, you don't really need a crystal ball to see 5, 10 years down the road. They could be driverless. You know, we talked the last time about Huxley, right? And the difference between effectiveness and efficiency, and ultimately, you know, efficicizing ourselves right out of the economy. I don't know. I think it's insane to go backwards. I think always forward makes sense. And in my little foundation, the smartest thing I can come up with to say repeatedly is, look, get a skill that's in demand, that's really in demand, that can't be outsourced. What that means vis-a-vis technology, I don't know. What it means vis-a-vis retail, hard to say. A lot of big retail stores are contracting right now. Yeah. But plumbers, steam fitters, pipe fitters, carpenters, mechanics, those men and women right now, welders, can pretty much write their own ticket. And so, again, on a micro level, I see a lot of reasons to feel really optimistic.
So what's your new show?
I'm not allowed to talk about that, but the old one... Well, look, there are a couple things going on, but you might remember Somebody's Got to Do It. It was over at that other news network for a while. Yeah, and very well. So season 4 never aired. It just, the election got so insane, and I wanted to I wanted to find it a new home. And I'm supposed to sign a deal like today or tomorrow, but season 4 of Somebody's Got to Do It will be back very shortly, and the whole thing is going to pop up someplace else. And sorry, I wish I could just say there it's going to be, but every time I talk that optimistically about my own personal economy, some machine of the gods swoops in and it goes off the rails, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Boy, do I know that feeling.
Right?
Rowe, it's great to see you. Yes, very, very well. Very well. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Sincerely, man. Congratulations. Tucker time. I love it.
Thanks, man. See ya.
You bet. See ya.